this House believes that we cannot trust the mainstream media. I look to the first speaker, Melanie Onovo, Secretaries Committee, Christchurch, to open the case for the proposition.
A lot of my friends will be wondering what I'm doing standing here tonight. I dreamed about the day that I'd be rewarded with the prestigious opportunity to stand in this chamber to do a paper speech, since the day I got an offer to this university. But never did I imagine that when this day came, that I'd feel such deep shame to be a part of this institution. I know that the people close to me are confused and disappointed that I continue to remain a member of this committee. For those who feel that I've let you down, you know who you are. I'm extremely sorry, and I know you want answers, and tonight I'll try to give them to you. I genuinely believe that there is hope for the Oxford Union. With a concerted effort, with responsibility and transparency, we can start to chip away at the deep, structural, exclusionary parts of the union. This place can only be as good as its staff and the committee. And instead of giving up, I'd rather make sure that I'm heard and I have influence in the start of that process. I do not want to stand on the outside and shout to others to make the changes. I want to be on the inside and be a part of making those changes. I would like to start by saying thank you to Sarah, our acting president, for continuing to work hard for this institution and continuing to do her absolute best to make the changes necessary so that this abhorrent state of affairs may never happen again, and the union is a more welcoming place when many of our fellow committee members just gave up. One positive, I must say, about mainstream media is the capacity for it to enable us to hold our great institutions and leaders to account. Because if we're being honest, we would not have this great amount of discourse about what needs to be done to change the Oxford Union without this media storm that came in these past coming weeks. However, we are currently in a time where information is no longer scarce and unavailable. The internet and social media have allowed us people to access greater amounts of information that were previously provided by a few outlets. Things like local news franchises, student journalism, and our mainstream media. I think whilst this new source of information is exciting and new, it's precisely at this time that we need our established media institutions to be the providers of truth, and we need them to be the neutralizing force to the spread of fake news. However, like most old and established institutions, like this one, there are obviously structural flaws to mainstream media that have inherently damaged its integrity and credibility and caused a magnificent crisis of trust in the platforms that make us politically informed actors in this society. I have 3 headlines for you in this speech that will hopefully draw attention to the lies and fakery better than clickbait. Headline 1, how media moguls have stolen control of our democratic process. Headline 2, how profit-driven mainstream media has created xenophobic and racist divides. Headline 3, how media bias has contributed to the dangerous spread of fake news worldwide. But first, I'd like to introduce the speakers for the opposition bench. In first opposition is Cyrus Naji, member of Secretaries Committee, a second-year classicist at Somerville College. Usually these introductions are supposed to be funny or contain some sort of creepy inside committee joke. But I'd honestly just like to say that Cyrus is a remarkable person, and I'm happy to have made such a supportive friend during my time here on committee. In second opposition is Cameron Barr, the managing editor of the Washington Post since 2015. He was also nominated for the Pulitzer Prize in 2003. Given his interview at the International Journalism Festival about regaining trust in journalism in the age of Trump, it will actually be interesting to hear how he now suddenly believes that mainstream media in the way it currently exists can be trusted. Lastly, in opposition is Eamon Ryan, the current leader of the Irish Green Party and the Irish Minister for Communications, Energy and Natural Resources from 2007 to 2011. Considering the impact that misinformation had on the Brexit vote, that could have a compromising impact on the long-lasting peace that was created in the Good Friday Agreement, it would be quite interesting to also hear how mainstream media is serving its purpose as a reliable source of the truth. Ms. Acting President, these are your speakers and they are most welcome. So headline one, how media moguls have stolen control of our democratic process. So what is mainstream media and what makes it different, right? It's the fact that mainstream media represents the established and traditional broadcasting outlets. The problem is that the way these outlets receive their reputation of being established or traditional is not based on them having earned this status through publishing reliable and equitable journalism. Their reputation is an extension of their power of distribution and the length of their existence. This means that although the nature of mainstream media gives them the ostensible image of credibility and reliability, they have not acquired this reputation by being any of those things, just by being big and powerful. Who owns the mainstream media? It's mostly big billionaires like Rupert Murdoch or Richard Desmond, right? What does this mean for the current state of our mainstream media? It means that a very small group of really, really rich old white men control the majority of our most influential media outlets and have the power to influence what they publish in alignment to their highly partisan relationships. Hashtag the Tory party. Let me give you some examples. So, The Sun, Conservative. The Times, Conservative. Daily Mail, Conservative. The Telegraph, Conservative. The Day Express, guess what? Conservative. The Mail and The Sun have the highest online readership. And given the fact that they're owned by a man that was willing once upon a time to hack the phones of a murdered schoolgirl or the victims of the 7/7 bombings, it's profoundly frightening and dangerous that this same man still leads the bulk of our media, our mainstream media outlets. 5 billionaires own 80% of our mainstream media. Over time, the rates of media mergers are growing globally. For instance, in 1983, 90% of US media outlets were controlled by 50 companies, and now that number has fallen all the way to 6. Think about that. 6 different companies own 90% of the US media, mainstream media. What kind of power does that mean for these media moguls? It means they single-handedly control the bulk of our established media, and therefore the information that we consume. It includes their ability to influence the information that we have about our political sphere. It is well within their power, therefore, to promote the interests of those that keep them rich and powerful. This is a massive power imbalance. As beyond controlling the bulk of our mainstream media, they also have unlimited resources, right, to know sensitive information about us all, including government officials. This creates genuine fear to ever go against these billionaires who control these media outlets, as it can literally be make or break for a political career or even an election. The impact of that is that we get highly biased media sources that concentrates more on partisan interests of the few individuals rather than the provision of true, credible, factual information. On to headline number 2, how profit-driven mainstream media has created xenophobic and racist divide. Contrary to liberal ideal, in reality, it is clear that mainstream media is far from free, fair, or unbiased. It stems from one fundamental flaw, the integration of a more egregious and cynical element of capitalism, namely the pursuit of profit at the expense of integrity. This manifests in particular for certain tabloids who seek to fan the flames of racist discourse in order to appeal to a radicalized support base. The profit incentive means that these newspapers are prone to sensationalize stories and vilifying groups of individuals, as this creates a culture of fear or a degree of shock factor that keeps their papers selling. In the European Commission's most recent report against racism and intolerance in the mainstream media, The Sun and the Daily Mail were criticised for their reckless reporting, which was deemed by the Commission to have fueled racist violence and hate speech in the UK. The report said that the hate speech was a serious problem, particularly in these two papers. For instance, Katie Hopkins' infamous column in The Sun, which she used as a platform to spew racist hatred, likening refugees to cockroaches. By focusing on the vilification of individual groups of people in society, rather than creating objective publications of fact, you divide society and you prove people's biases that make them have feelings of hatred to those who they see as the other. You promote violence against minority groups that are already fighting the battle of integration into different communities, into different cultures. It is disgusting, and it makes a mockery of our country that is multicultural, multi-ethnic, and very much influenced by the remnants of a colonial past and economic ambitions that makes us who we are. Headline number 3, how media bias has contributed to the dangerous spread of fake news worldwide. When we go on Facebook and you see a spread of articles or feed, and it all has a similar vibe. This is because an algorithm has created you a nice cushy echo chamber, a nice comfy space with all ideas that you are comfortable with. In the same way, you may only read the Daily Mail or the Times because it's more compatible with your political alignments. It's the same way that your online consumption and media operates. But why is this slightly different in the online sphere, and why is it dangerous because of mainstream media? This is because the internet is highly unregulated, which means there's a variety of sham news sites, fake think tanks that have emerged to promote fake news and are proliferated through the use of bots and other means to distribute misinformation. Why does the current state of affairs, state of mainstream media, make this worse? This is because due to their reputation as credible institutions, their shared sentiments with these fake news articles and sites provide them with a sort of fake legitimacy. For instance, The Sun has used several targeted and misleading articles, headlines such as 1 in 5 Brit Muslims have sympathy for jihadis. This subconsciously would influence the possibility of individuals believing the content of The Sun and other fake, fear-mongering, Islamophobic content that they see in these echo chambers of ideas and information. The end result is a more dangerous, more divided, and more ignorant society when we can no longer depend on our established news institutions to provide us with the truth, and cannot tell the difference between fake news, real news, and access information on the web that is unregulated and unaccountable to anyone. For these reasons, I'm so proud to stand in proposition, and I hope the rest of you join me in doing so tonight. Thank you.